We hope everybody out there is having a very pleasant afternoon. It's a beautiful Tuesday in Lusaka. We hope for the rest of the country as well. Welcome to Open Line. My name is Judyngulube. Today we're talking about a social issue that really does affect families, communities, and the entire country at large. What am I talking about? Suicide cases among young people specifically. And when you look at this deeply and trying to understand and unfold it, you want to ask questions such as, does society see the red flags for this young person who's about to commit suicide? How important are mental health checks in this regard? And do we even understand what a mental health check is, the stigma that is attached to it, and why this comes along in our communities? The loss of a life, for especially getting to suicide, leaves more questions than answers for the people who have been left behind. How do we then deal with that? Because it's traumatic on the people who have remained behind. And where does the church come in when it comes to answer questions such as these? What is a worst case scenario that honestly somebody can just go ahead and want to take their own lives? These are the questions and situations we're going to be discussing on Open Line today. I'm excited because I have a very comprehensive panel of guests with me. I have Dr. Naheem Dilal. He's a psychiatrist from the UTH, and I also have Eunice Nkaka, Deputy Manager and Counselor at Great North Road Rehab Center. And of course, a face that's not new to our screens, Pastor Benson, Chisenga, a clergy coming through as well to try and understand how we're going to just get these things meshed up from the health perspective, the biblical perspective, spiritual, and of course, these are members of society. So from even away from their, their offices and what they deal in. Thank you so much for coming through. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Thank you. And good afternoon to our viewers.
All right. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Judith, and good afternoon to our viewers.
All right. Thank you for coming through, Dr. Lynn.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon.
All right. Let's start with this one. What is suicide? Let's define that, firstly from the medical point of view.
All right, okay. So suicide is the act of self-harming. So basically an individual that would want to end their own life and not want to live. So that is what we call suicide. But then we also have a concept known as suicidal ideations. And this is where an individual has the thoughts of not wanting to live and actively thinking about killing themselves. So that is what we call a suicidal ideation. But within suicide, we also have, Judy, what we call passive versus active suicide. So now passive suicide is where you have thoughts of, pausing life, not wanting to live, but not acting on those thoughts, all right? Or, those actions. On the other hand, we have what we call active suicide, where you're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly wondering, I don't want to live, I can't go on like this, and I want to die. And you will actually act on those thoughts by maybe writing a suicide intent or talking about it or making things happen so that you actually carry the act out. So in a nutshell, suicide is the act of not wanting to live and carrying that act out.
Okay. Now, when we get to the Bible, do we have cases such as this? He's explained different types of suicide, some active, and I really come to think of it, that there's those that are constantly in your mind and others, it's burning things somewhere down. Do you have anywhere in the Bible where we see such manifesting?
One ultimate and paramount biblical example of a character who claimed his life was Judas Iscariot. And when you look at the case of Judas Iscariot, he claimed his life and committed suicide because he got overwhelmed with guilt, and there was also society's pressure, and he felt he couldn't meet the expectation that society around him had set for him, and compounded with the guilt, he felt unworthy to go on, unworthy to live, and unworthy to be counted and listed among the disciples. So a sense of guilt had gripped Judas, a sense of worthlessness had gripped him, and a sense of failure. And that is what comes out from that narrative, and eventually, therefore, the effect, claiming his life.
When you look at the causes of suicide in general, what pops up the most? Or have you had somebody come to you to say, you know, Pastor Eunice, I'm feeling like this, it's worthless, it's not worth living? What are some of the conversations you've had, if you've had any experience for such?
Yes, we've had several experiences, several encounters where people come through to our services to seek for attention, like suicide. And lately, there have been a huge number of people turning up to the rehab center for such. So among the other things that are so common, financial constraints, and maybe also for young people, this is a person who is at school being bullied, maybe because they are experiencing failure in their academic studies, they are not performing at their standard. So those unworthiness, like Pastor Chisenga has mentioned, kicks in, you know. Also alcohol and drugs, you know, because alcohol and drugs can also induce someone to be suicidal due to depression. Where the feeling of unworthiness, and when this person looks at family members, they don't feel fitting, they don't look connected, because these family members, they don't really understand what is in the mind of this person. Other things are schizophrenia, Doc will highlight on that one, people with bipolar when they're in the maniac stage. Yeah, so those suicidal thoughts come in.
Are you sharing the same sentiments, Doc, when you have patients come through and they survive and you have conversations with them? What is coming up as the causes of suicide?
So, Judy, from our perspective, to add on what my colleague has said here, we look at it from the biology, the psychology, and the social elements. When we talk about the biology, we're talking about genetics and inheritance of medical conditions and brain disorders.
So suicide can also be genetic?
Yes, it can, Judy. So we're talking about, so just to mention, risk factors of suicide. If there's a family member who is died by the act of suicide, that's number one. If there's a previous suicide attempt, if there is actually a family condition of mental health, such as major depressive disorder, bipolar mood disorder, all of these conditions, Judy, are inherited. They run in families. Just like hypertension and diabetes, these are mental health conditions that are treatable but run in families. So we're talking about biology on one spectrum. Then we have psychology, learned behaviors. Many of us go through our day-to-day life in our environment, and we have certain learned behaviors in psychology. This is where culture comes in, this is where beliefs comes in, and this is where religion also comes in. So certain things that we've learned growing up. So many times, people that I interact with, especially young ones, it's also about the restlessness, guilt, and also feelings of inadequacy, self-guilt, doubt. These are concerns that come in. So that's where we talk about psychology. And then, of course, there's the social environment. This is where we talk about socioeconomic factors, things like financial concerns, okay, poverty. We're talking about social relationships, interpersonal violence. And in my case, one thing my colleague left out, but which I see especially in both government and private practice, is violence and trauma that happens growing up. We're living in homes where there's a lot of unspoken trauma that is being transferred to children who are growing up.
To what extent can violence and trauma have on a person who can, you know, it can actually lead to suicide?
Okay, so when I talk about violence and trauma, I'm talking about things like gender-based violence that we see within homes, not just, you know, physical in nature, but also psychological in nature. Constantly telling a child to say, you are not going to amount to anything, you are useless, you are hopeless. All of these points can actually change the brain pathology of a person, right? That's one thing. Another thing is defilement and rape and abuse. Did you know that according to Save the Children Zambia, every 3 hours a child is abused? That child grows up with a lot of trauma, unspoken grief, and that child eventually reaches the stage of adulthood and cannot cope. Okay.
You know, we've had interactions that, and I'll be coming to you, Pastor Benson, where people are saying, no, the kids of nowadays are just soft, because when we were growing up, someone would tell you, hey, chumutu iwe, oh, blah, blah, and you'd shake it off. What would you say to that? Has there been a change in regards to what people are absorbing?
Well, as I said, it's generational and it's genetic. Now, here's the thing. If you've grown up in a home where you've constantly been, you know, psychologically told that you know, your head and everything like that, you're going to grow up resilient. But then you're going to pass on those psychological stresses to a child in your DNA. that child is going to already be stressed when the child grows up. And that is genetic. These are things that people don't understand. And now, because of the extent to which neuroscience is going, we're able to see that. So saying that, you know, today's children are soft, that's not true. Today's society is equally worse. Okay, when was the last time we heard of floods in Zambia? Now we're talking about that. How often were we experiencing droughts in Zambia? Now it's a frequent thing. Talking about COVID-19 and the stresses that have come with us, are you going to tell those things don't have an effect on a child's life? So these are, you know, conversations that we should openly have, but it's not true.
Interesting how you talk about if, let's say, Judy can shield that trauma, not knowing that it's in her, and she'll pass it on to her son or her daughter. Wow. Are you having these conversations in churches?
We are.
Or you are just relaying the gospel to us as Matthew, Luke, and John without relating it to how a 22-year-old Ness will kill himself over 11,000 kwacha?
Well, I mean, the responsibility to shepherd immediately, you know, conveys an idea of such conversations, because what the Bible conveys and what the Bible reveals, what the Bible teaches, the subjects that we focus on are meant to prepare people for heaven, but also make them effectual and effective as they live their lives on the earth. We do discuss these things, and just to add on to what my colleagues have already elaborately spoken about, one of the things that I personally discuss about so much is the upbringing of children in our families. The upbringing is very important because one of the things that all of us need to understand is that life decisions and actions are always triggered by orientation. And orientation is influenced and inspired by environmental factors. Factors such as family values a child is exposed to, factors such as family history, as Doc has referred to, factors such as the family's way of responding to failure, and factors such as the family's way of resolving conflict. And one of the things that comes out very paramount in most suicidal cases basically is a failure to manage crisis. And you can see that this is a learned behavior. This is something that they observed, perceived, and therefore interpreted according to what they perceived and observed. And in the end, suicide cases look very, very common and very rampant because most of the people fail to manage crisis. It could be a financial crisis, it could be a social pressure, it could be, you know, a psychological breakdown, emotional imbalance, and so on and so forth. So failure to manage crisis, something that we don't train and, you know, coach and couch our children early, is what eventually marries out into these cases
And
later in life. Yeah, sure.
In your counseling sessions,
Yes, Judith.
conflict resolutions, ripple effects of some of these things that Pastor Chisenga has spoken about here, family values, and you know, the world has become so complicated because it's just not Judy and her household and what they perceive as normal. The children will go to school, they will have all these interactions, there was internet and whatnot. How then do you combine that but then balance it?
Okay, how we can balance them? You know, a long time ago, family values really were there, where people can sit with their children, they talk about certain things, but also in our cultures, there were certain things that were like, they don't disclose to the children as they are growing up. I'm talking about mental issues. Doc talked about genetic things that we've inherited, BP, bipolar, schizophrenia, those run in the bloodstream. And look at where we are coming from, where we don't really treasure mental health, where certain things were not really, you know, spoken about. You know, he's talked about a rape case where this child who is 14 years old, he's maybe raped by a 45-year-old. And then because it's an uncle or a close relative, those issues will just be kept to themselves as family members. Osakakambepo, ininkancha beatu. Now, when the child is growing up, it's eating him because they'll bottle up emotions and the guilty will come in and also those things. And also lack of role models. This is a family where my dad and my mother, they always fight. They always drink from a drinking spree. And then me, I'm growing up as a child and coupled with rape. Honestly speaking, Judith, when I grow up, will I be a person in society who will be productive? And also, if I share my story with my neighbor, my mom and my dad will be on my neck. So growing up like that and now coming up with a modern world where there's internet, you find that we have failed to come to, to level, to terms whereby at least nowadays things we can talk to our children, because the things that we conceal, children are able to have access.
And they know them anyway.
And they know them.
The
you find that the child
are
will have
becoming thinner and thinner.
Yes. So it's just best for us to go back to our drawing board, whereby we can start talking to our children on certain issues. You ask questions on a meal table. Are you okay? What's bothering you? And so forth and so on.
Okay. Doc, I'll be coming to you with the age range. Here we've generalized, you say young people, but we'll get a bit specific after we get to talk to Salim, who's our first caller. Good afternoon. Talk to us. Hello? You're through to Open Line. Okay, try to call us again. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, talk to us. You're through to Open Line.
Yes, madam. How are you?
I'm all right. Talk to us.
Yeah, I've got an issue which is concerning the suicide. Just this morning, my friend committed suicide. So I think there is need to sensitize in the community. We have to employ people to sensitize, to raise awareness. Because some people, they have got issues that cannot be disclosed to anyone.
Okay.
So like her, she committed suicide in the morning because of marital dispute.
Because of, sorry?
Because of marital dispute.
Okay. I'm so sorry for that. Thank you for sharing. Wow. So we're talking about this issue and somebody just committed suicide this morning over issues of, marriage dispute and marital issue. So sad. Unfortunately, the reality on the ground, various issues causing people to get into such a situation. So unfortunate, that situation there. Doc, we were asking the age group, the most vulnerable when it comes to the younger group.
Okay, so I will start by saying that with young people, they don't want to die. Okay, they don't want to die. It is mostly, majority of the times, one, psychological pain, because I will say this, the same parts of the brain that are responsible for physical pain are the same parts responsible for psychological pain. Because you can't see psychological pain, this young person will start self-harming, trying to feel that pain, okay? So please understand that it is not attention seeking, but rather it's a way of saying, I need help, okay? So that's one. In terms of young people, it is the second leading cause of death in adolescent girls.
Wow.
So I'm just going to
Just
say
hold your thought there. We have another caller. Hello, you're through to Open Line. Talk to us. Hello, you're through to Open Line. Talk to us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Fine. Please go ahead with your comment.
Okay, I just want to comment on the topic that you bring on.
All right. Yes, you can. We can hear you. Go ahead. Comment. So do me a favor. We'll have feedback if you're very near your TV. Kindly just maybe reduce the volume or move away from it because you have an echo and we won't communicate effectively.
Okay. What is it? You have put.
Yes. All right. I think we lost the caller there. Please do us a favor when you want to call us and contribute to our conversation. Just move away from your TV screen or reduce the volume. Otherwise, we have a lot of feedback and we won't communicate effectively. You were talking about the age range and self-harm. So and how that is a call for help.
So second leading cause of death amongst adolescent girls, including in Zambia. Okay, so adolescent girls from the ages of 11 going up to the ages of 18 right? It's the second leading cause of death. Then we have young people from the ages of 15 to 29. This is the third leading cause of death globally, okay? And then finally, when we talk about generally suicide, every 40 seconds, according to the WHO, World Health Organization, one person dies by suicide. So every 40 seconds that are passing by in the world, someone is dying by suicide. So when you look at statistics, it's not just young people, but generally everywhere we are seeing it. Now, comparing men versus women, young girls versus young men, young adolescent girls are second leading cause, but then men are more likely to die by suicide as opposed to women.
Why is that?
Because with men, the causes are more lethal. So whatever act that they'll carry out will actually lead to that death. But with women, oftentimes, the lethality of the act, maybe what they'll use as a means is not as lethal. So that is why.
Wow. Those are very, the statistics, you know, and adding to the statistics that Doc has spoken about, according to the World Health Organization, about 700,000 individuals are lost to suicide. Now, this is on a general basis, not just to the young people that we are referring to here. Now, what challenges is the church facing when it comes to you know, such a complex issue in regards to feedback? You told me how you're interacting with your flock, but what feedback are you getting?
Well, one of the things I've noticed is while Zambia is a conservative society, I feel people have also taken it too personal. People are too conservative and they are not too open about what they go through. So it therefore becomes incumbent on the pastor to really be very apt to watch out for his flock. Personally, I'm very particular. When I'm speaking, I've developed skills. When I'm speaking, facial expressions can tell me a lot about expectation, excitement, sadness, sorrow. And whenever I see some form of expression that indicates sadness, sorrow, depression, distraught, I immediately set those people apart and put them on a program. From here today, I have a list of people. At 15:30, I have counseling with a couple. At 16:30, I have another one.
Are they receptive?
They are. Once you try to open them up, you have to do it carefully, skillfully, and you have to really guarantee confidentiality. They open up eventually, and once they open up, quickly you take them through comprehensive counseling. And sometimes I bring in experts like psychologists and doctors to also enhance the program.
Okay.
So
hold your thought there.
For me,
let's talk to Matthew from Choma. Hello, you're through to Open Line.
Yeah, the issue on suicide on young children is sometimes in this community on the parents. They don't have time to talk.
You're a bit low. Kindly speak up for us so that we can get you.
I mean, like in this society, the main cause of suicide is because the parents they don't have time to talk to their children.
Okay. Thank you very much. So it was a contribution. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. It's nice how we have the viewers also coming in and, you know, what they're seeing in society and how some of the causes coming up.
Yeah, sure.
So here's a contribution for him.
Like I was saying, look, the challenges will be there. We will face many challenges in terms of how we react to people and how people react to us. But it's incumbent on the pastor to be diligent to know the state of his flock, person to person, family to family. And there will be many cases that will arise. A lot of people will contemplate suicide. But with a comprehensive, robust, and radical programs that are on time to help people, we can help them on time, and we can save many lives. This, I'll keep emphasizing this. Whatever is happening built around this issue of suicide has to do with failing to manage crisis. And so we need to train people to manage crisis on a personal level, on a family level, in the communities, and even on national level. And if we learn how to manage crisis, it will become very easy, it will become very effectual to overcome. We all face problems. The problems I'm going through, somebody else faced them, and they overcame them. And that's the mentality that we must carry. If they overcame and came out of their problems, I too can overcome and come out of them.
I can hear someone saying, Pastor Chisenga, but we'll get to that.
Okay.
Let's talk to our next caller. Good afternoon. Welcome to Open Line. Talk to us.
Madam,
Yes, sir.
I know there's a pastor there and there's also a dog.
Yes.
With my situation, it's that I was working, I got employed, and just from nowhere, I was fired just after getting injured whilst on duty.
Okay.
But I've been working on my case. The case is at the High Court, and then I've pushed from 2018 up to this year. And the judgment was supposed to be last year, which was on March 81. From that time, I wasn't given the date when the case is coming back again, or what is going to be done on my case, or to call me, or just to inform me. And whenever I'm working or just concentrated, just thinking of my life, there's something that comes with the pressure. That's just like it's something that has just happened, that has come to hit my heart or maybe my body, and then start feeling a very fast pumping of the heart, and then having pressures as if I've killed someone. The police have come to take me to the police, and then there's that pressure that comes, and there's a spirit that comes sometimes saying, why are you going through this problem? Can't you try to do something else so that you overcome it? And what I do by overcoming it is just by sometimes having a private prayer, and then just put myself under pressure, like working or doing something. And whenever I think of my case, there's something that comes, maybe like striking me, forcing me to do something that I'm not supposed to do. So similar to some of the victims that I found most of the time doing suicide, they fail to handle their pressures, and they don't have a spirit of maybe saying, let me put a prayer on it, or let me pray over it, or let me go to some people who can also counsel me so that I overcome the pressure. That was my own contribution, madam.
All right. Thank you so much for contributing and offering some of the solutions, especially that they're coming from a personal point of view. Very valued. Appreciate. Dr. Earlier on, you touched on self-harm as one of the signs. What are the other ways we can identify crying for help? Oh, but before you come in, Pastor Chisenga, you finish your thought.
I think I concluded.
You did, eh?
Conclude.
All right, then let's get to Doc then.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to share this, and I know so far the conversation has been more general in terms of, socioeconomic challenges, financial, the earlier lived experience scholar who shared his, experience as well, and, using religion as well as, self-coping mechanisms. I would like to share, Judy, that's many times there's also the concept of generalized anxiety disorder. There's also the concept of mood disorders such as bipolar. There's also major depressive disorder, and all these conditions are found as early as the ages of 14 going up to 16. And they manifest early, and when they are not picked up, the brain starts becoming used. And look, there is a disturbance in the brain in the chemicals. And some of these things are not easily just, taken away by communication. They actually need support, assessment with, colleagues, professionals, as well as religious support, which are coping strategies. Now, signs that you ask me for, it's not as ABC where I'm going to say this equals this equals this, because there's a group of factors. As my colleague guided to say, if a young person grows up in a home where there have been so many problems, and then you've been sent for education, and then you end up, not performing as well, and then that stressor gets to you. It's not that the person has not performed well, that's why they've killed themselves. It's because there's all this backlog of all the stresses that they've gone through their life. Even this gentleman, colleague of ours, who is a male nurse who died because of financial stress. It's not financial stress. There's a lot of other factors.
So that could just be the trigger.
Yes. And my colleague, Pastor Benson here, guides us to say, look, counseling is an important part, which is something that we promote because it helps with those chemicals to be balanced. All right. So now coming to the signs. First of all, you actually have to look at the person, knowing the person. How has their mood been? How have their sleep patterns been? How has their appetite and diet been? You know this person, their personality. Are they someone who talks? Are they someone who keeps themselves? If there is a change, that is the very first sign you look for. Secondly, Judy, even when someone jokes to say, I think I want to pause life or I don't want to continue, don't take that lightly. Try to probe further. Ask, are you okay? That's another sign you look out for. Other things, colleagues reaching out to say, I am stressed, I am overwhelmed, there's financial stresses, there's marital stresses, there's this, that. These are all signs that you have to look out for. Now, again, on another end, you also look for family history. Is there a family history of mental health concerns? Is there a family history of suicide? Is there a family history of violence? All of these things can also link you to be signs to say, okay, this is something we have to look out for. Now, again, on the other side, even if I tick all these boxes to say, yes, I am doing this, that doesn't mean I will go ahead and carry the act out. So there's a lot that you look out for. But again, when my colleagues here mentioned to say there is a failure, that's a very big turn. There's not a failure on the individual, no. As a person who communicates very well in mental health, it's not a failure on the individual. It's a failure of the community and the society at large.
We'll be getting into that conversation.
Yes.
Let's talk to Louis. Louis, you're through to Open Line. Talk to us.
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yeah, I just want to contribute on the same issue that is being discussed.
Okay.
Actually, these programs are really important in our society for really a lot of young people are going through stuff and they fail to open up because I think our parents or maybe guardians are not open, like when it comes to issues that have to do with health matters or things that are really like disturbing the young people in society. Recently, I had a friend who just committed suicide. I think the burial is just taking us tomorrow. So that's when they're burying. So this person really had issues going on. He should tell people to say, me, I just want to kill myself. But then they ignored. So you find that the people that really, the elders, they are not playing their role as being having that foresight to see what is really happening in a young person's life. So most of these pressures sometimes you go through because of peer pressure from friends, from schools, or maybe just financial challenges. You find that maybe you want to do something, but monies are not coming. So you get into depression. You isolate yourself from other friends, other people. You don't have even where to go to. You don't know who to talk to, whom you can trust. Even in churches, I think mostly it's the Christian community, or maybe the church in general, so to say. They need to have programs that at least that can help people open up with what they are going through in life. They need to free, they provide that confidentiality and confidence in young people so that they open up. So the issue at hand really is a challenge because a lot of people are going through stuff and they don't know where to go to for help.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you very much.
The challenge thrown to society, a conversation we're getting into right now, and thrown to you as well. That would be our concluding remarks. What you're doing in your own individual capacities, apart from just coming here and having this conversation, but in your own individual capacities to make sure that there's some love being spread here. Exactly.
Yeah, Judy, I just wanted to say this is the second young caller who's called in talking about parents.
Yes.
All right, and I would like to bring out a point of generational divide because this is something I see in my practice. I'm a young person myself, and I see elderly people and young people coming in with different thoughts and patterns of understanding how life is supposed to be lived. So there is that generational divide that we are living in Zambia right now. Yes, and we need to address that as well.
In your counseling sessions, how do you handle such situations?
Okay, such situations, whenever we receive a suicide case, the first thing is we engage them. We ask them.
Because for you, your basis is family, isn't it?
Yes,
that's your foundation.
That's the foundation. You probe further. You do a clinical assessment, documentation of genetics. Like if maybe in the family somebody killed themselves. Is there a mental health condition running in families? So all those are rolled out. And then also we make a treatment plan. the first thing is we engage them, you start talking to a therapist, and you make them comfortable. And also they should feel so much love. The incense is for them to give you the information, because you need, after engaging them, you need to now identify, you know, what could be the root cause of your situation. You talk about the background, you just befriend this person, they'll share with you stories because you've shown that you've befriended and you are connected. And
Can suicide, so you have that conversation and you know they pass that phase, can you relapse and still come back to that?
Yes, you
situation?
can, based on the risk factors and socioeconomic issues that you are facing through. So yes, they can. And also let's talk about mental health disorders such as bipolar mood disorder, which is a chronic condition. It's a long-term condition. So as you're going through treatment, you're going to be stable, but you're going to be triggered by your day-to-day reality as well. So it can still happen. And again, Judy, what we're not seeing, you and me, is the physical change in a person, because you can't see it. But in the brain, there's chemical imbalances.
So that chemical imbalance is now what's translating to moods and
Yes.
then tempers. So even a boy who's 5 years old has got a temper, then it's that.
No, so with young people, look.
Start shaking their sons and.
No. So Judy, for the brain, the way it develops, the brain still develops until its mid-20s to late 20s. Emotion, the part of the brain that understands that I am happy, I am sad, develops at around 12 or 13. So as a 12-year-old, I'll tell you I am happy, I am sad. But me able to control my happiness or sadness, that part only develops later in life, at around, in your 20s. This is why looking back, you'll start asking yourself, why did I do that? Because that connection has just developed in the brain. So these are things we need to talk about.
Conversations,
yes.
definitely. We have a caller on the line. Hello, you're through to Open Line.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I just want to contribute on this topic.
Please go ahead.
Yes, the big issue about that is you find that the parents are bullying their children in terms of education, for example. So when when that person is being bullied by the parents, this is a situation whereby a person is going to kill himself. Okay, so there is a need of the churches as well as the counselors to come in and to help this situation so that it to come an end.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate your contribution. What are the factors that are contributing to a successful turnaround? When you have conversations with those that you were talking about, Pastor Chisenga, where you look at them and you say, this person is just not saying, there's something deeper than this.
Exactly.
What contributes?
To helping them? Look, for me, maybe I'll, on Doc's counsel, I'll substitute the word failure with inability. Maybe failure is too opprobrious, very obnoxious. So I normally believe, and I'm very persuasive and categorical about this, suicidal thoughts, apart from other causes, is caused by inability to manage crisis. And so I normally focus people that I'm counseling on learning to manage crisis. And secondly, the other cause, I need to emphasize this, is a scattered focus. I always remind people that what you focus on controls your life. If you focus on anxiety, you focus on worry, you focus on panic, and you focus on your weakness, that weakness will overwhelm you and make you feel worthless, unable, and the next thing is you'll be entertaining suicidal thoughts. There is one mechanism and concept I use to help people. Refocus. How do you refocus from what is overwhelming you and almost killing you to what will build you and help you? There are three focuses every single individual at every instant and under any circumstance of life should maintain. Three of them. And I learned them from David. David has a life built on crisis. And one time, there's a narrative in 1 Samuel 25. He's facing a crisis. His wives, his children, his property has been grabbed and taken away. He was at war. He was fighting a battle with his colleagues. They come back, everything is gone. The reaction of his friends was different. They wanted to stone him. His reaction was different. He decides to focus. First, he focuses inwardly. There's what you call inward focus. Everything outside is gone, circumstances have changed, but inwardly there is that confidence, that last confidence you can pick from. There is that last little strength you can draw from. And in the case of David, his connection with God created that inner basis for strength. And so he focused on inner strength and avoided focusing on outward trial. The second is something I call upward focus. Focus on God. One of our callers was talking about prayer. Engage God, but prayer must be informative. And prayer must be based on, must be built on understanding. It's not just this hocus pocus, this hodgepodge of binding spirits and all sorts of things. Focus your prayer on divine information. What has God said about your life that is positive? Stand on it, focus on it, speak it, confess it, meditate on it. That is the upward focus. Then there is the third one, forward focus. Nobody makes it, nobody rises, nobody comes out of crisis by looking backwards. Look forward. So maintain your inward focus. Try to tap from the little strength you may find there. There is upward focus. Depend on the ultimate strength of God. And then there is forward focus. Better things, better life lies ahead, not behind you. Things might not have worked in the past, but there is something. There's a little hope ahead of you. Hope is a foundational quality for change. You can lose everything in life, Judy, but as long as you don't lose hope, your future remains intact.
I'm sure you've answered that person who was saying, so at least now they know what you're talking about. Yeah. Let's have a conversation with Daniel from Solwezi. You're through to Open Line. Talk to us. Hello, Daniel.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, talk to us. You're through.
Yes, I'm through. Sometimes it's a frustration, you know. We normally find ourselves in families whereby, like me, the way I've grown up, I've never been kept with my parents, no father, no mother. So I've lived a life of frustration. Whenever I want to look for maybe the job, you find that my friends, my colleagues who have their parents, they have the upper hand than me. You know, I struggled to go to school. You try this, it failed. It failed. You try this, it failed. So currently, I have 4 children. This suicidal thoughts has been coming in my mind seriously, and I wanted to do the act last week. Because I've been frustrated so many times. Whatever I want to do, I feel like nobody to help me. I may like to have built a grocery at the small house which I've built, but to find a capital has been another side of the river. I've tried, you go to this bank, you'll be told maybe you have to look for someone, a working surety. And that working surety, to some of us, it's very difficult. In a family, you don't know your families. Your families are in Eastern Province, somewhere else there. You want to provide for your children, you find yourself that you are at home, nothing, it makes you laughable. Because everything is difficult, it's tightening, so I start feeling as if I have failed in this life. I'm not providing my firstborn, she's in grade 12 at Nkaka Secondary. But I've been struggling to find anything. I have a shop, so right now I'm watching you in my shop. But nothing which I'm selling only water for 1 quarter, imagine. No capital, but I have the idea that I can do this. But I try to find work, no answer. I go this side, no. So now when you are seated, the mind which comes that let me commit suicide. I'm sure this is the most reason that is causing people, because he has tried this and all situations have failed. The last chance I let me end my life. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing, Daniel. We have a very able panel here. Yeah. I want you to really listen to them. After you've had your contribution, we've all heard his story. Yes. So we're going to start from the doctor, and we'll come all this way so that they can also have something to say towards your story. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, Daniel, first of all, Muntuwanga, listen. There are so many strengths that I picked up from you sharing. First of all, you are a married man. You have a beautiful family. You have a daughter in secondary. These are all achievements that I am so proud to hear from you. And I'm just going to focus on these strengths because you have this in you. These thoughts that you are having are normal. they are very normal. And it's okay to feel the way you're feeling. What I will guide you is to go to your nearest health facility and reach out for support. I will also guide you to call 116 Lifeline Zambia, where there are trained psychosocial counselors, and it's a toll-free line, so they should be able to guide you. Everything you've shared with me, there are trained psychosocial counselors who will guide you on how to support yourself. And should you need any kind of psychological support, they will refer you further. But please, thank you so much for holding on for so long. We still need you as a society, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Daniel, for calling. Actually, you are a brave man. Thank you for coming out among the billions of people, and thank you for keeping your family so well. You are an entrepreneur. So what you can do is, like Doc has highlighted, seek professional help immediately, and also encourage your daughter, to also support you and your wife and your children, because basically those are your support system you currently have. And above everything, look up to God. God will fill that void in you. God will fulfill your desires, and God will enlarge you. Our pastor talked about upward, focus on the upward. God is almighty, and he'll see you through. And also continue seeking professional help, because you'll be taught a lot of coping skills, so that you don't indulge yourself in taking alcohol to numb that pain, no. And avoid being alone, because when you're isolated, those thoughts, they'll keep on coming. Keep on doing what you love doing, because you're an entrepreneur. Continue selling the water, and continue seeking professional help, and also seek medical attention. Thank you so much.
Daniel, it's important to understand this. The problem is not the problem you're facing. The problem could be the way you are perceiving it and the way you may choose to react to it. Judy, allow me to relate my own life to Daniel.
Please.
I got a very good education at a tender age. I earned a master's at 24 years. I left Zambia, went to South Africa. I got a lucrative job, and I was getting lots and lots of money. It was there that I decided to come back to Zambia under God's instruction to start serving and ministering to people. I've been a pastor for 21 years now. I started quite early. The first 9 to 10 years were rough. I remember how sometimes I failed to put food on the table for my family. At one time, I remember how we failed to pay rent. We were evicted. We slept under the rains. One of our colleagues we knew runs a private school. He had to provide a classroom for me, my 3-year-old son, and my wife. We lived in a classroom for close to 1 month. And I felt everything that could have caused suicide. I felt rejected. I felt abandoned. I felt worthless. Like Daniel put it, I felt very frustrated. But there is one thing that I learned: hope. My prestige was lost, but I never lost my hope. And that hope maintained my focus in the face of crisis. Life sometimes will throw you into crisis. It's inevitable that one way or the other, all of us will face crises and challenges. It is how we respond and react. For me, it's not about where you came from, whether you came from a rich family. I came from a very poor background. And therefore, it's not about where you came from, where you are, what you have and what you don't have. It's about your focus. I want to re-emphasize. In the face of how you feel and what you're facing, maintain your inward focus. Doc has elaborated for you very, very excellently what your strengths are. Focus on those strengths. The upward focus. Let God be God in your life. Then the forward focus and the forward thinking. If you can maintain your focus and trust the process, sometimes we want things to happen quickly because we are looking at the next person, and the next person's success becomes our standard, becomes our expectation. It's not about society's opinion for your life, and expectation It's about your destiny. It's about your desire. It's about your purpose. Focus on what you believe you can do, and you can make it. Keep your mind positive and strong. You will rise out of it. I came out of all that, and everything is history. And today, I think by the grace of God, I don't remember the last day I was thinking of what I'll eat the following day. But there were many days I went hungry with my family. I couldn't afford accommodation. I almost ended up on the street. But I maintained my focus, kept working, trusted the process, and there we are. It works, Judy. It does work.
I've been encouraged. I'm sure, Daniel, you also have felt some things that I've felt just from the words that they've been talking about, and how we definitely still need you around. Please just keep the hope as well. When he talks about letting go, and also Daniel talking about how these things keep recurring, and you know, he's been through it, those chemicals you keep talking about, Doc, can they allow you to let some of those things go, even if you constantly tell yourself in your head that I'm going to not remember what happened, how I was tormented, what I went through, that abuse? Is it possible?
Yes, it is, with treatment and support. So we call these ruminatory thoughts. Okay, ruminatory thoughts are, a thought comes in, another thought builds from that thought to that, and then it just forms a thought bubble of continuity. And when that thought bubble leads you to stray from your day-to-day life, being able to focus, to say, now I have to eat, now I have to sleep, now I have to work, then that is a concern. And this is where we come in as professionals, and we support you. So we understand these chemicals. We will give you certain medication that will help you to, you know, create a balance in these chemicals. And once we do that, then it won't be a day 1 or day 2 effect. It will take some time, and you will feel much better. So to answer your question, yes.
All right.
There is an answer, there is a treatment.
Very nice. Because of time, we have to close here. Remember, you can still catch us online. You can still continue this conversation online on our ZNBC online platforms. But unfortunately, we have to turn off the lights in the studio right now. But thank you so much for having been a part of this conversation that is really resonating with a lot of people out there. For my guests, before I let you go, a huge thank you. But 2 words. Words, not sentences, because I know my producer and my director are in my ears. 2 words for this issue before we close, starting from Doc, coming this way.
There is treatment.
Okay.
Love that.
There is support from counselors and well-skilled counselors.
Happiness is not about getting what you want. Happiness is enjoying what you have.
All right. Not what you want, but what you have. Very insightful. Thank you so much for coming through once again. This has been Open Line. We have been talking suicide cases among young people, but we did spread a little wider to just issues of the causes and some of the solutions. And quickly just going through some of the solutions. If you're somebody who didn't call us, you pray, you seek professional help, you spread some love if you're not the person who's going through that one. You also be a brother, a sister to the person. Refocus, inward focus, upward focus, and forward focus as well. And also how you respond to a situation, how you react to that situation is a huge part of how the problem will come out. And Doc gave us a line that you can call if things get worse, 116, am I correct? Yes. 116, and this is a Lifeline Zambia. Have a conversation with them and they will come through. On behalf of the entire production crew with my sign language interpreter as well, my name is Judy Ngulube. Thank you so much. Keep watching TV1.